Hello, fermented folks. Welcome to another episode of Fermented Fiction, the show where we drink beer, yell at each other, and debate the best in the genre fiction realm in terms of literature and film. Today we have a special guest, Drew Huff. We're really excited to have you, Drew. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone.
Hell yeah. And as always, we have the usual doofuses, me, my brother Travis Vermeulen, and Jeremy Hudson. And we're going to start this episode the same way we start every episode, which is with a round of personal updates. And we'll start with Travis.
All right. Mine's pretty short today, but it's exciting for me, even though it's a small thing. I've been walking around with this guy for a
Look
bit.
at that guy.
The rubber one, because I had this big problem with, originally I got this ring that was like whiskey barrel because I like whiskey, but in Montana's dry climate or something, it kept like the adhesive must not have been good enough at high enough quality from the company I bought it from. I went through two of those guys. I would wash my hands and they would peel off from the like tungsten interior. So we finally were like, no more of that company. And my wife ordered me a new one that's like meteorite tungsten and then has like a whiskey barrel a little bit inside of it, and we're hoping that works a little better.
That's so cool.
I'm very sick of wearing the cheap, like it's like an O-ring. It's like nothing. So that should be coming in tomorrow, and I'm pretty excited to get my new wedding ring.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Congratulations. And it's a meteorite. Yeah. That is sick as hell, man.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
I hope it's not carrying any like interplanetary organisms that are going to take over the entire planet.
Yeah,
I mean, I kind of hope it is a little bit.
If that's how I go out.
A little too on theme for 2025.
Yeah, but if that's how I go out,
a tiny amount,
that's how I go out. I'm okay. If that's on my tombstone, I'm okay with that.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe he'll just become Venom or something. You don't know.
That could be cool. Sometimes it works out to be infested by a creature from a meteorite. Sometimes it works out. And you're right, Drew. I mean, this year, just add it to the pile. Just throw it on there. Why not? Interplanetary organism
might as well
invasion.
Also happen.
2025. It's on my 2025 bingo at this point.
Yeah, for real. Let's go.
Interplanetary alien shenanigans.
I want to see it. I want to see it to keep things fresh.
Get that
Jeremy
card going.
What?
What's going on, pal?
My update. Well, so this has less to do with me and more to do with, I guess, Hobby Lobby.
What?
But now stick with me. My story gets better.
All right.
I was there earlier this week with my wife, and I saw something that just absolutely delighted me in that, we're coming up on Easter and stuff. It's the springtime, so they have all their Easter stuff. And I found the Easter stuff that are Christmas decorations that they clearly just recolored to be Easter themed. They have Easter trees. There are Easter like hot chocolate
Easter
things,
hot chocolate, yep,
which look like the Christmas
Easter
ones, but these ones have ears. That's pretty good. They have these carrots, which are clearly little like Christmas trees that were turned upside down and spray painted orange. It's incredible.
I love that.
And that and the painting of a chicken about to eat a fried egg is why I love Hobby Lobby.
Hobby Lobby.
Dubious moral implications on that painting. That's boy.
My wife is a big fan of not a big fan of. We have one Hobby Lobby sign in our whole house, and it's the Gather one. But she likes to put it in the bathroom.
Oh, the Gather one.
Yeah. So it's like
That's
over our toilet. So people are always like, why is there a Gather sign in the bathroom? And she's like, that's where we gather.
Yes, why not?
Why not?
Have you guys seen that YouTube video of somebody's house is built on a white burial ground. It's so funny. It's
Now, but I will now.
yeah, it's hilarious. He's like, it's like all the ghost stuff, but you know, with like white people bullshit. So it's like his mirror fogs up and then it says live, laugh, love on it.
Live, laugh, love.
Yeah. And when he tries to turn off the TV, it keeps turning back on and it's Friends every time. It's pretty funny.
Friends or The Office.
Yeah, totally.
Or
The
The
Office would
Office.
also work.
Yeah. I love that.
So for my personal update, I just finished selecting and getting the last like edits that I'm in charge of for the Crypticon writing contest this year, Crypticon Seattle writing contest. So that's exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a lot of work and it's breakneck pace because we close our window like last week and then I have to get everything ready in a week basically. But luckily had, you know, really awesome contributor stories and the contest stories that came in were relatively clean. So that's a good thing. Makes it a lot easier. And yeah, now I'm sending off the copy and line edits and then we'll have a book at the end of the month. It's going to be pretty sweet.
Nice.
And that leads us into by far the most interesting person on this show today. Drew, what's going on? Who are you? What are you up to? What do you write?
Oh, you're too kind. I just write books and I doodle things. So I made the very intelligent decision to uproot every single thing in my life all in the same month. And in that same month, I have AuthorCon 5.
Hell yeah.
So my plane for AuthorCon 5 leaves tomorrow at 6:15 a.m. I'm flying from Washington State all the way to Virginia. So 8 hours. Gonna get there at like midnight on Thursday. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
And then it's an hour drive from the Norfolk Airport all the way to Williamsburg. So I had to get a rental car. I'm gonna be driving through Virginia in the middle of the night. So we'll see how that goes. Car full of haunted books, all that. And to top it all off, I'm moving from my small little conservative town that I hate. I got stuck here after high school, moving from there to Seattle. So we're going to see how that one goes. We're going to see how it goes. I have a house. I was very lucky. Was not through good financial planning. I was just very lucky. So right now I'm trying to rent my house out. I'm trying to get that up to date. I've got this. And then to top it all off, the novella that I thought was going to be a little novella turned into a novel on me. It's like at 60K and I'm not even done. So
they grow up so fast.
They grow up so freaking fast. Anyway, that is the whirlwind that has been my life for the past month.
Nice.
Very excited.
That's awesome. A lot going on there.
Yeah, lots of really awesome stuff. I'm excited to have you out a little bit closer so we can do some events and stuff in Seattle. That's going to be fun. And
It'll
speaking
be
of
fun.
events,
Yeah, I've been excited to.
Oh, I was just going to say, and speaking of events, do you have any book like signings or launches or anything like that planned for your new book once you get to the city?
Yes. I'm going to hit up some of the indie bookstores and see if they'd be interested in stocking a few of my titles. I feel like I'm going to get a little more hype for Divine Flesh when I'm at AuthorCon. It's already got more hype than any of my other books, and I'm very excited.
Nice.
I actually have some really exciting publishing news that I signed a contract for, but I can't talk about it until next week. But
okay, cool.
There will be more Drew Huff coming out in 2026.
All right.
Nice. Congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So keep an eye on Drew's social medias and Instagrams and everything like that. We will put everything in the show notes so that you know where you can go follow along, as it sounds like we have some really exciting news next week. But Drew, do you want to give us a real quick intro into like what kind of stuff you write? I know you write horror, but if you could give us a rundown of what it generally looks like.
A lot of people define me as a splatterpunk author, and I agree partially. I never intended to be splatterpunk per se. It's just that the thing you can say about my fiction is that I don't really have limits. I take things to the extreme if that's where it's going to go. I don't put restraints on the horror per se. And sometimes that ends up being exceptionally gory. Sometimes it just ends up being weird and trippy and philosophical. I tend to write with a very stream of consciousness style. A lot of people have compared me to Chuck Palahniuk, which, I mean, I appreciate. You know, it's funny. We're actually from the same city, born and raised in Pasco. We even graduated from the same high school. Wild.
Nice,
It must be
that's
something
crazy.
about Eastern Washington. But yeah, I've dabbled a little in sci-fi, but mostly I didn't mean to be horror per se, but that's just where a lot of my work ends up. I like to take concepts and explore them as far as they go. The weirder, the
Hell
better.
And, you know, so Zeb, who is, of course, watching right now, has asked if you would mind explaining to him and anybody else who might not know what splatterpunk is.
Thanks, Zeb.
Ooh. Splatterpunk, the way I heard someone else define it, and I agree with this, it tends to be horror that embraces nonconformity. It's not just extreme horror. It tends to be horror that embraces anything anti-authoritarian. It's anti-authoritarian, ragtag horror that doesn't really, it's a little more extreme than a lot of mainstream horror, but it's not necessarily, that's not the defining feature. The defining feature of splatterpunk, I would say, is that it's willing to go above and beyond for the sake of the story. It doesn't confine itself to normal horror conventions. Tends to be weirder, tends to be wilder. I would say it's like horror's crazier cousin who turns up to the family reunion where all the other genres are and just starts, he brings the moonshine, just starts going wild. That's the splatterpunk.
Love it.
Would I be correct in assuming that Mad Max is kind of splatterpunky? Like those kind of vibes?
Yes.
Okay.
Mad Max, I would say a lot of Haley Piper stuff is splatterpunk.
Mhm.
And I was kind of debating this with someone else on another podcast, but I feel like Stephen King is actually very splatterpunk.
Definitely.
Tends to just go balls to the wall. And I think we forget that because he's attained so much success that a lot of people want to think of him as mainstream. But his stuff tends to be, even when he's trying to tone it down, way too more unconventional than a lot of the traditional horror releases that come out. But that's what makes him so memorable. That's why we love Stephen King.
Yeah, I mean, they had to tone down it for the movies like big
Yes.
time because it has a lot of really, really far out messed up stuff in that chonker of a book. But yeah, I think that definitely.
To be fair, he did write that thing while he was on a lot of cocaine.
Definitely.
I mean,
definitely.
He doesn't even remember writing Cujo.
No.
I feel like that accounts for some of the wildness of it. I honest to God think Stevie was just writing that up and he was just like right near the end of the book, he like wanted a bender or something. And he was just like, man, you know what will be really wild? Let's throw this crazy scene in this. And it's like, buddy.
Yeah.
Dude.
Tone it down.
And that's how we
it
know
was
that there
really
is
wild.
an of cocaine.
Yeah.
I feel like the end of it and the Tommy Knockers and Dreamcatcher are better anti-drug PSAs than anything I've ever seen. You know what I mean? It's like you want to really take people to stay away from drugs. You show them these books and you're like, dog, if you do this, you're gonna write like this. Do you want to write like this? Do you want to write Dreamcatcher?
Yeah. Dreamcatcher.
Absolutely.
Do you want to write a book where there are things called shit Weasley? Unironically, no.
I mean, a little bit, yeah.
Jeremy might do that.
Speaking of gonzo bloody things, I know Clayton, you brought us in, but I've been chomping at the bit to describe this movie because, as you know, I'm a huge Fede fan.
Do it.
And so the movie we're talking about today that Drew and Clay will be debating for 10 minutes in just a second here with our main segment, Forced Entrollment. For those of you who don't know how Forced Entrollment works, Clay and Drew, I will be rolling for Drew, will be rolling these shiny math rocks. The higher roll has to
Thank you,
defend.
Travis.
You're welcome. The higher role has to defend Alien Romulus, the higher role has to, defend Alien Romulus, and
Yeah,
the
you got it, bud.
lower role has to attack Alien Romulus. For maybe those people who haven't seen the movie, where you been? And it's the Alien franchise. It's very popular. So, first Alien movie was made in, I believe, 1979. And then Aliens was after that in 1986. Romulus takes place in between the two. So, it's a sequel, prequel, kind of, that's way after it produced. And it takes place on a mining planet that's run by the Wayland. I always forget the second name.
Wayland-Yutani
Company, who is very dystopian, just kind of a crappy company in all the movies, trying to find the perfect organism, which is the xenomorph monster, which I'm sure, even if you haven't seen these movies, everyone's seen a picture of the xenomorph. Clayton's got one on his shirt right there. And
right here.
Nice.
the movie is about
I love it.
You got.
movie is about a group of 5 people and a synthetic, or a kind of a robot, an android in this world, who go to retrieve cryopods and fuel from a shipwreck sort of in space, so that they can make it to a different planet and get out of their mining civilization. And as you all probably know, since it's a horror movie, that doesn't go well. So that's Alien Romulus in a nutshell. Clay, Drew, you guys ready to debate?
Hell yeah.
All right, let me roll
Hell
this dice
yeah.
for you. Drew, I'll let you pick your color. I got purple, I got blue, I got black, and I got blue and gold.
Let's go with blue and gold.
Blue and gold. Okay, blue and gold.
Make it shiny.
Lucky one. Oh, I got a tilter. I'm going to re-roll. It caught on a corner. It was either a 6 or a 16. That one did not tilt. What did you get, Clay?
I got 3.
I got a 7. So, Drew,
All
you're
right.
defending.
Hey!
Damn. Okay.
You are telling us why Alien Romulus is a great film. Even if you don't believe that, we will have time afterward to talk about our real opinions. I have our 10-minute timer ready. I will give you a countdown when you give me the thumbs up. Ready? Ready. Okay.
Right.
3, 2, 1. Drew, you start us off and go.
First of all, I want to start with the cinematography of the film. Visually, the film is stunning. The use of color, and it's not simply, it doesn't use a standard color scheme, it doesn't go into the greens and the reds it maintains the aesthetic of the original film while having these beautiful oranges and these blues and it's like stepping into a time capsule and seeing the original one for the first time. What I think it does, maybe a little bit better than the first film actually, is exploring the concept too of the androids, their devotion, their humanity, and really delves into the debate of, okay, is an android self-aware? Is an android like a person? It was something that was skimmed over in kind of a shallow way in the original Alien franchise, but here they actually explore the idea that someone would see the android as their family member. They would be devastated if the programming were overridden. And I mean, the action sequences are good. There's a lot of cleverness with the use of the gravity field. And something that I also like this film for is how well it really goes into it really explores all of the concepts. And by that, I mean, it actually goes into the alien's blood being extremely acidic and points out that if you shot one of these things, the blood would drip down and dissolve the hull of a ship. There's just a lot of, again, and it's like with the android thing and that debate, a lot of the implications that were glossed over in the first film for the sake of cheap action are really explored a little more in this film. It's not a slow burn. The aliens don't show up until about a third of the way through, but nonetheless, you have these characters that you immediately root for. You have these people that are trying to escape the society, and you do get the impression that if they fail, it's not as simple as just them escaping the alien. The society itself feels very oppressive. Man, I don't want to just debate, or I mean, I do want to debate. I don't want to just monologue here. I think as a whole, it's a very solid addition to the Alien franchise. It hits all of the plot beats of the first franchise, while also putting new spins on certain things and exploring, it's like a more intelligent Alien movie in some ways than I think the original franchise achieved. Clay, what about you?
Bro,
You're
you
muted.
Muted. All right. It was raining really hard here and I have a metal roof. I think this movie wants like
Ooh.
hell to be all those things, Drew. I think it really, really does. And I think Fede is very confident that he pulled it off, but he's fucking wrong. Because here's the thing. I'll start with the characters because it's my biggest beef with this movie. It makes it absolutely impossible for me to enjoy it because the characters and the dialogue is the most stilted bullshit I've seen in an acclaimed movie for a very long time. There's literally, I mean literally, like I've watched it 3 times. There is almost no dialogue at all, not a single line that is not expository, that is not telling me what the plot is or what the conflict is or what the characters directly think about it. And it's a pet peeve of mine, exposition disguised as dialogue. People don't fucking talk like that. And you just aren't trusting your audience to be able to draw your message from the story. And like, it's not our fault that you have like a bad writing complex. Like, fucking get your shit together and tell me a story and let me decide what the theme is and what the conflict is. Like, trust your
They're
audience.
using visual
No.
storytelling.
They're
Visual.
trying. But listen, you still have to have a script. You still have to have believable characters. These characters are the most archetypal D&D campaign tropes I've ever seen. And can we fucking cool it with Bjorn? Okay? Like,
And
I
the
get it.
original ones weren't. The original characters of the Aliens franchise, besides Ripley was very deep. The original characters were so deep and so textured. Like, no, they weren't. People were there for the action and the aliens.
So if this was such a more intelligent version of the original, why didn't it do better? Because I don't think it did. Like, I get it, Bjorn. I get it. You suck. Everybody gets that you fucking suck. And, sometimes, this, Drew, as a writer, you will have a big plot hole or a big problem with your character arc, and your editor will go, maybe you just need to add a couple lines that, like, point out why this character feels that way. Fede was like, 1 line will do it. It's like, oh yeah, his mom got killed by a synthetic, so that's why he's a complete douche and he totally sucks. And we're just like, okay, that'll do it, I guess. No, it fucking doesn't. And look, not all stoners are douchebag, loudmouth assholes. I mean, I am, and Bjorn is, but I've smoked weed with a lot of lovely people, okay? And he's given us all a bad name.
Hey, maybe it's stronger than weed. Maybe it's space weed. Space weed just does different things to people. I mean, we don't know that.
I love that, Drew. I wish I could believe that, but he was also a massive chode before he smoked the space weed.
Oh, man. Tell me the special effects weren't the coolest thing ever, though. I mean,
they were fine, but like, I don't care if you die, if like, I don't care about you as a character, and pretty much my enjoyment for most stories, regardless of the medium, is going to be based largely on my connection to the characters and the reality of the tension and the atmosphere. And I didn't feel a lot of that because, as you said, this is not a slow burn. I do feel like the first one had a lot more suspense, a lot more actual horror. even being made decades earlier than this. And the problem I have with the special effects in this movie is they're super overindulgent in it. They get Dragon Ball Z syndrome, which to me is when, you had 5 seasons, you had Frieza who could blow up a planet with his fucking finger, and they kill Frieza, and then they get continued. So they're like, okay, well,
they
now
know
we
what
need...
the audience wants, Clay. The audience is here to see aliens explode out of people's chest and see lots of aliens die, and they're giving the audience what it wants.
I suppose.
To be fair, the problem with having a film and a franchise like this, the thing is, the first film, you didn't know what was going to happen with the alien because you didn't have an entire franchise of movies outlining exactly what was going to happen once the thing was on the ship.
Yeah.
The film is already operating at a disadvantage when it comes to creating suspense. And so it's going, rightfully so, hey, we can't do suspense. So why don't we just start with the action and give people a lot of aliens? Why don't we just give them the gore? Why don't we just give them the special effects? That's a stance. It's a stance that I can respect for what it's trying to do.
But it's the easy
realistically,
way out.
Tell me, how would you build suspense in a film franchise when the audience already knows what these creatures are and what's going to happen?
Make me care about the characters. And if you do that, then you can skip the part with 10,000 xenomorphs and just get to the part with the offspring, which could have actually been really scary. But by the time we got to the offspring, we had already had 2 other endings to this stupid fucking movie. So I was like done with it. Like, she just killed like 90 xenomorphs, no military training or anything. And sure, they added that one line where, oh, don't worry, it aims for you. Oh, okay. Well, then I now accept that my POV doesn't have to have any actual skills and she can just skate her way through with cool tech. Bullshit. Nothing makes a xenomorph less scary than 100 xenomorphs.
Yeah, right. Okay, but tell me there wasn't a little bit of anxiety and fear with the whole android brother subplot line, where you're wondering, like, is this guy going to turn on these people for technically stealing cryo solution? Is this dude all of a sudden going to just snap and like hurt them the way the android did in the first movie? I think there was in my opinion, that was a solid subplot of the film. And there was a decent amount of suspense because I spent the entire time wondering what was going to happen with this. Mm-hmm. What was actually going to. Now, I don't think they really explored that to its full potential. I don't think they did everything they could have done with that. But I do think that they at least tried to have a little bit of suspense with that subplot.
Yeah, they tried.
That is beer.
They tried.
Shut up, everybody, please.
Clay, I am so sorry. I was not very good in that debate. I agree with
you were great.
You said. You said all of my opinions out loud, and I was trying so hard to just. No, I was just feeling that in my soul. I'm like, I can't even argue that these characters aren't cardboard cutouts because they're cardboard cutouts. I can't even like argue against that. It's like, yeah.
Look, I think they did a great job with their ragtag group of variably lovable scoundrels and their sweet autistic friend.
They're not even scoundrels. They're not
deadly metaphors.
Are they scoundrels if they're cardboard cutouts?
Yeah,
they're cardboard cutouts of scoundrels.
Anyway.
I think you did great, Drew. We'll definitely we're gonna dive more into your true opinion, and I feel like I'm gonna be outnumbered on this show today. But before we do that, I have some fermented facts. Oh wait, no, beer of the week. Sorry, Clay.
Woo!
Beer of the week.
Bring us into that.
Okay. Well, we have all brought a drink of some kind, a fermented drink of some kind. And Drew has tea, but black tea is fermented, so that might count.
Hey.
It counts regardless of if it's fermented, but here we are. I have this beer that I found at the local tap room. That's just, I go to my local tap room every time and see what they got. It's by Vice Beer. It is a dry hopped triple IPA, California style. So it's got a little bit of a punch. 16 fluid ounces of 10.5% goodness. And it's called Not Getting Any Younger. just like the Alien franchise.
No, it's definitely it's old at this point. Great. Jeremy, what are you drinking? Oh, sorry.
Now,
Please don't ruin my life again.
look, hey,
Let's finish with Jeremy because
Can
he's
I
such a
just-
good.
Yeah, you know what? We will. We'll finish with you. Drew, what kind of tea you drinking? I'm also drinking tea. I have Earl Grey decaf because it is both night and Lent.
Oh, nice.
So I'm not drinking and it's
Unfortunately, mine is herbal. Unfortunately, it's a sweet clementine tea, fancy tea.
I
I
will
don't want to
point-
drink too much caffeine because I've got my flight. I've got to get up at like 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will point out though, our art teacher made these mugs of all of my
Ooh.
students, all the upper school students
Oh,
made all of these pictures.
Cool.
So there's
That's
some
That's
real,
so cool. Oh,
The
those are bold.
bird one
I
is
like
really
those.
good,
They're
yeah.
very colorful.
so anyway, it's a mug of my students' work.
That's awesome.
Oh,
Jeremy, ruin
Now
my
look.
life.
Now, Travis, why do you assume that my choice is going to ruin your life?
Because
know,
you
just-
look like a dog at the butcher shop, my guy. You are
Now
so
look,
excited
hey.
to do this.
I actually think this is going to be a letdown.
Okay.
Like, Travis is expecting to get very upset after what I did last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was rude.
That's justifiable, but you have to realize there's only so far I can push that before it actually becomes unpleasant to drink. So what I have here
You have to be willing to do that.
Yeah. You have to find that limit.
now, look, hey, no. This is, it's like I am with food, where I only make delicious food. There's no why would I make something to drink that I don't want to drink, With that in mind,
mm-hmm.
I still have my Toki Suntory whiskey,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
and I also have this Liquid Death sparkling water Killer Cola flavored
Killer Cola. Nice.
with a slice of lemon.
Yeah, you're right. That one's not as bad as last week. Last week.
How
was
could
worse.
it be?
Last week was worse. The pink Red Bull into the Japanese whiskey it almost killed me. I can't believe you did that, and I'm still not over it.
You can't. You
No.
can't. You don't believe that part of it?
You're right. I do believe you
I think
did
the
that.
only thing that would have been worse is Fireball in the whiskey.
Yeah.
Whiskey
Yeah,
on whiskey.
mixing Fireball with good whiskey, that would be worse.
That
Please
would
don't
be.
do
Hey,
that.
I'm not going to do that because I like myself.
Yeah, that's true. All right, now I have
You
some.
know, guys, with your fancy scotches, I had a $700 a bottle scotch once. I got to try. You know what it tasted
Nice.
like to me? A
Gasoline?
leather couch, a smoked leather couch. I
Yeah,
was
that's-
so disappointed.
I don't see the problem there. That sounds delicious. Smoked leather.
Like,
just
who
wanna
had been
drink a
sitting on that
couch?
couch? Like, for me, it fully hinges on who's been sitting on it.
That's true.
Right.
All
That's
right.
that's why it cost $700. It's all about who was sitting on the
So
couch.
who was sitting on it? Yeah,
That was like Hemingway or something. Pretty cool.
Brad Pitt.
Oh yeah, I drink.
Brad
Hemingway's
Pitt sat
ass.
on
That'd
that
be pretty good.
One
Oh
time.
wait, it was you? Oh, Pedro's saying it was him.
Oh, it was
Oh,
Pedro.
it was-
Yeah, Pedro Pascal.
Oh,
sat
yeah.
on the couch,
I'll
so.
take at
Nice.
least a sip of Pedro's ass.
Absolutely.
Drew, I'm not sure if you know, but Pedro Pascal is on our show every week. He's just too shy
Famous.
to show his
He's-
face.
He doesn't want to
to.
distract
Nice.
from
He doesn't.
all this.
Mm.
He's a great guy though. All right. So fermented facts. I'm gonna just sift through some of them. I didn't get to make my list. I procrastinated, but I have been reading through some of these, and some of them are very cool. Lots of them are like little subtle things in the script that you guys pan so much. Like one is Andy, being an old and outdated synthetic model,
Mhm.
has his finger twitch malfunction, which is a direct reference to Aliens 1986, where Bishop says that the older model synthetics were often a bit twitchy.
Mm.
So Fede put that little Easter egg in there. Oh, it's Colin.
Hey, Colin.
Oh
Colin.
snap!
Do you want to take
Hey.
over? You want to take over facts, or you want me to keep going?
No, please keep going.
Okay. Fede
Any of
Alvarez sought out the special effects crew from Aliens, not Alien, but Aliens, to work on the creatures, physical sets, practical creatures. Miniatures were used whenever possible to help ground everything in VFX, like practical work. The movie, as I said, takes place in between Alien and Aliens. This is the most profitable Alien film since the 1986 sequel. This one was my favorite little script one that was really cool. Navarro's prayer in Mandarin is not if you have subtitles on it, doesn't tell you what the prayer says. But if you know Mandarin, she says, please protect the 5 of us. She's asking her family ancestors to please protect the 5 of us, which is a really cool, subtle moment because there are 6 of them, but she's not recognizing Andy as a person that deserves to be protected. So that's a cool little subtle thing if you know Mandarin, or if you read the translation in English, like I just did. All the ships throughout these franchises have been named after either Greek or Roman mythology, which is pretty obvious, but some of them, Prometheus is the most obvious one after the Greek Titan. The ship Anasidora and the Apollo computer are in Alien Isolation, named after the Roman goddess and god respectively. The planetoid Acheron from Aliens is the river in the Greek underworld, and the USS Auriga from Resurrection is a Greek hero. There's so many of these. Let me find just at least 2 more.
Yes, a little 2 more.
The pictures of the miniatures behind the scenes are awesome.
Yeah. The facehuggers were amazing. A full kit of facehugger alien animatronics were crafted for a fight chase scene in the Remus lab, including stationary versions and ones with wheels for traveling fast on the floors. They were designed to be like remote control cars that they could actually move around. Mother on this ship is called 9001, which is an Easter egg nod to HAL 9000 from 2001: A Space Odyssey. And
he's one worse than Hal.
He's one worse than Hal. And the last one, there's a ton. If you go on IMDb, there's like 80 cool facts. But the last one I thought was really interesting because I thought this game was also fantastic. Fede really started to pursue making this movie after playing Alien Isolation around the time he was making Don't Breathe in 2016. On break times, he would play Alien Isolation. And he said, I was playing and realized how terrifying Alien could be if you take it back to the original tone. And that game is horrifying. If no one's ever played it, if you like scary horror games, they designed it really, really well. Definitely made me scream a few times. Those are my facts. Colin, Clay, Jeremy, got any more? Drew?
I can't think of any.
Nope.
Let's see. I think it was on Alien 3 where at one point the producers tried to dress up dogs as aliens to try and get a more realistic effect. It was as dumb as it was adorable.
The best thing about Alien 3 is that it was directed by David Fincher. Like that is such a weird. It's just like Alien 3, which is a misfire, and then 7. And it's like, what? Like, what? This guy. I love that.
Yeah, that is a wild fact for sure. Well, do you want to get into our actual opinions?
I think it's time. And I got questions on questions, especially for Drew, but for everybody at the table. Clay, before we get into that, tell us, what did you actually think about Alien Romulus?
This one was a fun one to debate because I believed what I said. But I also could have easily argued for this movie. I do really like this movie. I do think Fede Alvarez is an amazing director. His eye for cinematography, lighting design. As you mentioned, Drew, the color scheme is really interesting and dark, and every aspect of the film medium serves this movie well, is served well by Fede's direction and his collective team. I'm a big fan of everybody like that was heading up his filmmaking team. Galo Oliveras is a DOP who shot Roma, the director of photography who also shot Roma, which won Best Picture. And that's crazy to me because it is a very different movie than this.
Yeah.
But he obviously like knows what he's doing with a camera, and the cinematography in this movie is just fantastic. Benjamin Wolfich, the music composer, I thought the music was great in this. It evokes right, Drew,
Yeah.
and you were saying something similar, Drew, in your debate, but I love how it evokes kind of all the vibes of classic sci-fi, and it does a lot of that with the ambient background music when they're not focusing on it. But like if you actually sit and listen when characters are talking and stuff, it feels kind of like you're in an old Star Wars movie, like the original trilogy or Star Trek.
And it's
kind
not
of
corny. It's very sincere, which honestly I really dig.
Me too. Yeah, it's orchestral in nature, and it's just like it's back there hanging out. But actually, he did something cool and more modern, and definitely more horror oriented. When he did make you focus on the sound design, he used it to his advantage excellently. Like I love that opening scene where like every time I turn this movie on, I'm like, is my sound not on or is it not working? And I'm like, oh no, it's just actually the vacuum of space. And they're like, there is no sound in this movie for like a solid minute, which is pretty sick. And then that's immediately juxtaposed by the clamor and chaos of the asteroid mining colony. And it really emphasizes that isolation aspect of the horror. So I love the sound design. I love the music. Lee Gilmore, this lead sound designer, did Dune Part 2, Prey, and Blade Runner 2049. So he's a badass as well. And then the set designer was the same set designer, Naaman Marshall from Dark Knight and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which are both pretty sweet in terms of set design. So Fede assembled a fucking awesome team. I thought you made a good point, Drew, about the way this film utilizes the tone and sort of style of the original film, but it does what it has to, which is it has to evolve to the fact that this universe has expanded vastly and evolved since the original film. And you're very right about that. I mean, I actually was literally just asked that question in an interview today, but it was like, what makes horror different from sci-fi? And I think it's just that. The first movie, we don't know the monster. We don't know what's going to happen from it. We don't know the consequences of this unknown thing or the way it works or if it's defeatable, if it's mortal, anything. And exploring the depths of that is where a lot of horror, I think, comes from. And then once you know all that, it kind of becomes more of a sci-fi, honestly. I would say this one still has very much a horror tone, but it's a different genre of horror. It's definitely also a lot of sci-fi too, like more world exploration, more world building and things like that. And I guess the last thing I would say is just the performances in this were awesome. Definitely one of the better android characters I think I've seen. I really liked the android character. What was his name? It was Andy. Andy was pretty solid for me. Liked him. I wasn't lying about Bjorn though. That character was way too much. Way over the top. But
the only character rooting for was Andy, the android, the whole time. I was like, no, which actually kind of decreased my enjoyment of the film because I spent basically the whole time going, well, Andy's not this is not an evil android. He's 100% right. The whole time I was like, no, you can't let him back on the ship. No, like I felt like the movie
don't open the
wanted me
door.
to hate
Everyone
this
will for
android
sure
character, and I couldn't. I actually was completely like, no. thank God somebody's making a rational decision here.
Mhm.
Awesome. Sweet. Cool. Yep. Yep. Gotta
Yeah.
make those sacrifices, man.
David
Don't be so mean to your autistic friend.
David Johnson made I think he gave Michael Fassbender a run for his money, and he's in a better movie, I would say. I'll say my opinion after Drew's, but like Alien Covenant and Alien and Prometheus is when Michael Fassbender played the android character who's just straight up evil in both movies. But man, Michael's Michael. He's amazing. But yeah, as soon as I saw like 2 scenes of Andy and David Johnson's portrayal of the android, I was like, all right, man, you're boxing with a heavyweight veteran there. You're like making this role yours, and like you had big shoes to fill with following up on Fassbender's performance. But
I thought he did excellent, and I think all the other actors actually played the roles really well, but I do believe what I said about the script, and that's that the dialogue is largely expository and takes a lot of the substance out of it for me. It doesn't feel like real conversations at basically any point in the movie to me.
They're just blank slates. They're not characters. They're just blank slates in ways that it's just weird because the characters in the original weren't really fleshed out all that much, but they still felt like real people and real characters in a way that these ones just didn't. I didn't really care what happened to any of them, again, except the androids. I was just very meh.
Yeah. Can I say something
I
to
was
that?
actively rooting for at least one person's demise, so.
Right, for sure. I want to say something to that too, Drew, because I think that's a good point. I think, and this is speaking to the inverse of what I was kind of talking about in my debate, where your editor will tell you, go back and add a couple things that flesh this out. There's something that does do it in Alien, and that's the maintenance guys having just a normal ass conversation.
Yeah.
Like, give me that.
Yes.
I want to see them talking about their kids. I want to see them talking about football or something that doesn't matter, because that shows me who they actually are. You can show me that, like, they hear a noise. How do they both react? That tells me a lot of stuff if you do it right. And the conversation, the actual words don't fucking matter. But if you're just sitting there telling me, like, yeah, his mother was killed by an android, or, oh yeah, well, you're not coming with us. This is it's all like every line of the plot is literally just in the movie.
I know, and the only character that ever talks about something that doesn't matter is Andy, with his weird dad jokes all the time.
Which that gets to my first question, but I want to make sure, Drew, if there's any other comments you want to say about what you actually thought about the movie, because give you the floor for that. Of what is your full opinion?
So I think the biggest thing for me that really brought this movie down was actually a waste of potential. It wastes. So back to what I was saying earlier about, there's no real way to create suspense in a movie where we already know what's going to happen realistically, and the human alien hybrid, like, they already did that in another one of the Alien movies, and they probably did it better, in my opinion. This was very lackluster. Well, what was frustrating for me was they had a really cool opportunity to do something different with the aliens, something horrifying and grotesque. And they were even really setting it up with this human hybridization fluid can change you. What I was kind of really hoping for and kind of expecting, me as a body horror author, I wanted them to explore the concept of, like, have one of the, Andy or something turn on them and reveal that the hybridization fluid is to try and give these humans, these existing crew members, more alien, like turn them into like quasi aliens, basically. So turn them into monsters so that they can work more, which also would have fit in really well with the cyberpunk themes. And again, the main conflict is that they're trying to leave because their corporation is implied that they're just going to continue extending their contract. The corporation's going to hold them prisoner on this mining thing. I just was expecting and hoping for this really cool reveal where like one of them gets shot up with the fluid and it's like revealed, and they start literally turning into one of these disgusting, crazy aliens, complete with the mental, like they start like mentally changing. That would have been super cool, super fucked up. It would have fit in thematically with what they were trying to do with this movie. And it also would have been something new for the audience, a new kind of horror. Like, oh yeah, you know, there's the birthing, but which is scary, but we've seen it before. They had the opportunity and the setup to create a whole new kind of horror. Like the idea of literally turning in, and again, I know this is something I explore in a lot of my books, but I think that would have been super cool. It would have been a really cool twist. And it also would have made Andy turning, corporate into a huge actual threat. Like the first movie, it was scary when the android was revealed to be an android because he actually had plans that were contrary to what the crew wanted. Andy, it's like he gets overridden, he turns into a corporate drone, whatever. But it's like it doesn't actually have any real effect because he's basically just keeping them safe. It's like, okay, well, he's not really an obstacle. This is kind of sad, but imagine like they had an opportunity for a betrayal and a twist from Andy. And it would have actually hurt because that's like the one character anyone cares about. Like imagine our main character literally turning into a fucking monster and then like reveal that it's like they're an experiment. You know what I mean? Anyway, weird, goopy, so much wasted potential here. And it kind of makes the good cinematography hurt worse because I'm like, man, with a little better of a script, this could have been something amazing, but it's not. And so it's just mediocre.
Yeah. I think I definitely thought it was above mediocre, but I'm also kind of a super fan. It's really hard for me to not like just buy into Fede. I will fully admit my bias. I love Don't Breathe. I loved the Evil Dead remake. I like his atmosphere. I like the way he shoots scenes. Even when he has kind of wooden, like tropey characters, I think they usually work to like set up the atmosphere. I will say though, I even was a little let down because this movie has probably the best trailer I've seen in like 20 years. Because it didn't reveal anything. It like gave you just a taste of the scenes, but not enough to be like ruining it. It had me hooked. So I had high expectations going into the theater. And it didn't meet those, but I still liked it. But I do want to branch off of where we were for my first question. That's with the dialogue, because that seems to be everyone's kind of main issue here. Is and I would agree, it is pretty tropey and stilted. And I love, Clayton, you brought up my favorite part of the original Alien, which is I absolutely adore when blue collar characters are written like blue collar people. Like when you get the actual like conversation that happens between workmen, and Alien does that so well. So I don't know. My question isn't about specifically Romulus, but branching off of that, of how hard is it when you're trying to do that in a book, to research or pull from personal experience or add kind of that flavor of when a person's reading this who does know that world, they're going to buy in. Drew, you first, and then anyone else who wants to jump in. But like, is that a difficult thing to put into a story of like knowing that there's going to be people who know the world you're writing in that are like judging pretty harshly on like, is this actually what we sound like?
I think it's valuable to consider. There are advantages and disadvantages to creating something with a known franchise, right? Like the advantage is that you know the rules. The disadvantage is that you're forced to deal with the rules to some extent. But again, I still stand by my concept, like not concept, but my ideas for how they could have redone the plot in a better way. Yeah. Like it's a sci-fi world. They had opportunities to meet those standards, but still give the audience something new and interesting and fresh. And I don't think that they did.
And I guess like going away from that to just kind of like your own writing, do you find it difficult when you're trying to write characters who kind of have this fleshed out life inside the world that you're making. Is that a hard thing to really prove to your audience that they're real, they're people that would be acting the way you're writing them as?
Yes, it's actually something that has come up quite often in my fiction, is that I have the plot planned out for the way I want it to go. But unfortunately, part of one of the downfalls of having your characters get fleshed out is that you'll be writing a scene and you'll realize that the characters would never do things in the way that the plot wants them to. And so in my opinion, the difference between genre and literary fiction is when there's that debate, do you force the characters to go along with what the plot demands? Or do you, which would be genre, which is why a lot of genre characters are a little flat, or the literary approach, which is I'm going to have to change my plot to keep my characters authentic to who I've created them to be. I think... Not to take us too off topic, but I mean, that is one of the, I mean, you have to have a good, well fleshed out character in order to make audiences care about what happens to them. That's the backbone of good fiction. But you also have to be ready to change aspects of the plot when they do something that you didn't originally plan for them to do.
So I guess a follow up to that, and then we'll get to Clay, but like, you being the guest, I want to make sure I ask you this before it slips away. Chicken and the egg. Are you building the characters in your mind before the plot? Or are you kind of doing them simultaneously? How does that process work for you?
I tend to have them going simultaneously, but it depends. That's why I end up having to rewrite my beginnings a lot when I'm editing, because, you know, I'll write the thing, I'll set out to write something, and then I'll realize as the characters begin to form and they start to get more fleshed out that the characters wouldn't do things that way. So I end up having to go back, redo the beginning, and have everything meld seamlessly into the plot I originally wanted. But sometimes it happens that I have a character first and then I try to create a plot around them. Sometimes a character will just jump out right from the get-go. Yeah. And it just depends.
I love reading about the stories in television, especially when like you learn about certain people were supposed to be side characters and then they're like so good at their role that like Jesse from Breaking Bad is one of the best examples of like he was supposed to die in season 1, but like he was such an essential part of the story, and that actor did so, I forget his name off the top of my head. He did Aaron Paul did so good that they were just like, yeah, we got to work some things around this guy because he's awesome. And he becomes like this co-lead. But Clay, you've had your hand raised for a while. What are your thoughts?
No, it's good. I like what Drew's saying there. I think you pretty much have to go with the character. I'm a big proponent of that. But I also don't really plot. I kind of know like how I want something to end and what my major conflicts are going to be. But other than that, I'm pretty loosey-goosey. So that's easy for me to say. But there's been many a time like Drew described where I'm like, okay, I'm going to write this scene out today. I know exactly how it starts and how it ends. And that's one scene. And there's so many times where I've changed that scene and that scene has had a domino effect where I ended up like taking out an entire character arc or something. Right. And that's always a crazy experience because you spend so much time writing everything and then just your characters start to take over once you develop them and spend some real time with them, real intentional time with them. They always take over. And I think that without exception has been when I've written my best stuff is when I do lean into that slide. And as far in terms of like writing people accurately, like you asked, also just, I would say, do your homework, like do enough homework that you can like learn some vernacular. If you can like find a way to listen to whoever you're writing about talk, you know, like if you are a if you're writing about underwater diving, find a couple underwater divers who have an underwater diving podcast and listen to them talk to other underwater divers. If you're writing about surfing, listening to us, everything has a podcast. Like, just go listen to those people, talk to other people who do the same shit as them, and you'll like get a really big idea of what they actually talk like, and then put that in, because that works in your story too. Like, people love to hear something that sounds real. And people can tell real from bullshit all the time, even if they don't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's such a subconscious thing
Look
too.
on their subreddits, look at their memes, look at the culture that they, like you were saying, Clay, like look at the culture around, like, you know, underwater divers, that kind of thing.
It's all about that. And if you can say like a couple things that are in world vernacular for that population, they're gonna be like, oh, this person's done it. This person's underwater dived before. You know, if you can do it just right. I think Stephen King's really good at that. Talking to just the right amount of people, putting in just the right amount of things to be like, I did some homework. Okay, I kind of know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I think it's like so subtly subconscious too, of like, I just rewatched No Country for Old Men for the 27th time. Probably not an exaggeration. And I just noticed that in that, like the opening monologue from Tommy Lee Jones, he says this like subtle line of, he's telling the story of like Jim something, and I forget his last name, like Jim Aker never wore a gun. That's the younger Jim. And I was like, that is so like rural farm vernacular of like putting that little additional, that's the younger Jim. You buy in, like your brain does, even if you don't notice it does, I think. So. But Jeremy, you've had your hand up.
Well, hey, so I mean, I think everybody's right so far. You got to do your research, and you got to a little bit know what you're talking about if you're talking about somebody doing a job. But I think the most important to making a character feel real when they're doing a job, even when the job is a space heist, that job is rarely the most important thing to that person. And people are always going to talk about the things that they care about while they're on the job. So if they, and we touched on it earlier, like Clay's thing that he likes about the characters in Aliens, that they talk about something completely unrelated to everything they're doing. And that's good. That's real.
Yep.
I've had jobs where, you know, I'm just not going to talk about what I'm doing because I don't have to. I know how to do it. So I'm just like, no, I didn't watch the game. Does that go well?
Yeah.
Cool.
I think that's one of the best lines in the original Alien is when they're like not on board, the two mechanics. And then he's like, there's going to be a raise. And they're like, there's going to be a raise? Like, we're going to get more money if we like, okay. Yeah.
Dude, that's sick.
Well, I'm in. Let's do it. I'm like, that is the most like blue collar, like, oh, you give me $10 an hour more? 100% I'm in. I got you. But any more on that before I move on to our next question, Colin or Drew?
I mean, as someone who was in the IBEW, yeah.
IBEW.
Blue collar.
I don't know acronyms.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers.
Oh, right on. Yeah, so you got the vernacular. You got the vernacular.
Yes.
I love that.
One time I was working on a job with a few other dudes and a different work crew, and we got into, they were like literally having this debate over veganism. I shit you not. It was hilarious. Someone showed up dressed like Mr. T because that was that work crew's joke. Then we found, I shit you not, like a used syringe in somebody's toolbox, not theirs, just in the facility we were in. So we had to shut the whole thing down. It was crazy. We were just all like, what's going on, gang? Dude, it was hilarious. Somebody said I looked like the Twilight chick, but the non-whiny one. So I was like, all right, okay, that's nice. Okay, bud.
Small victories.
Anyway,
which one is that?
Us.
Yeah, which one is that?
The one that Anna Kendrick.
Oh, okay, her. Okay,
They all
yeah,
whine.
that's the non-whiny one. All right.
Yeah, she didn't do any
Yeah,
whining
it's something
any of those
that
movies.
also, like, I see a lot of people with MFAs trying to write blue collar characters especially in the indie horror scene. And I'm not saying this to be
Yeah.
mean to people, but I can always tell. And I'm just reading this like that's not how people talk on job sites. That's not
Yep.
the vibe. That's
And
And
I will
then
say to
Bob
play.
the builder hit the roofing nail with his hammer, and he turned to his coworker and said, "Gee willikers, there are vampires in town." It's like, "Gee willikers, we have 3 more roasts to do." It's like, no. Everyone's having an intense debate over the game, but like their kids and families too, because something else, not to take us too off topic, but when you work with like a work crew, like it's not like, I think a lot of white collar authors tend to assume that it's, your coworkers or like, corporate coworkers, but they completely miss the culture and the vibe. Because in blue collar, you work with a work crew. I mean, that's like the real work family right there. That's like for realsies. You're with these people. It's like you will know more about the people on your work crew than you probably know about your own family sometimes. People, it's you get into some weird discussions, man, especially on overtime.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
If I want to see a movie where that mirrors my own life, where sous chef Miguel told me that I sound whiter when I speak Spanish than when I'm speaking English.
I think that's
Jeremy.
I think that's Clerks. I think that movie.
That's Clerks?
Yeah. I think Clerks gets some lines in there that are very similar. But no, I love that. And I think it does make writing stronger. It makes and I think there's something too, and we're a little off topic, but it's a good topic of like, what do y'all think of? I think there's something to whenever you're getting into the creative arts. I think I haven't heard an argument against just trying to get as many experiences you can, as much experience as you can in different fields to expand that brain database. And I found it even helps me in teaching, especially philosophy, just for metaphors. Like it's so, if all I ever did was sit and study like the philosophy that I'm teaching, I wouldn't have as many, I'm teaching this to 8th graders and it's like, okay, let me explain this metaphysical concept. You really like horses, right? Okay, I've been around some horses before. Let's talk about horses. I think, experience is so valuable for the humanities and for creative arts.
Yeah, and I would speak to what Drew was saying about like the difference between sort of a worksite culture and your average what you would think of as a job, like even a job at a grocery store, but it's very different. And this goes for like sports where this is the case too, like anything from snowboarding to climbing or whatever. The level of like risk associated with an activity, I think kind of inherently strengthens the community around it. And like you get that a lot on construction sites, just in a different way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't build a really strong community in any other work site. You obviously certainly can and do all the time. Go for it, Drew. We'll still be here.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no
I
worries.
also just want to add real quick, and by cultural difference, what Clay and I mean is that you can tell somebody on a blue collar job site to go fuck themselves and be just have that be a completely okay, normal argument. And then you're fine. You get it out of your system. And then you're both fine. You're chill. That's the difference it's actually kind of been a culture shock for me being in the writing community and seeing how passive aggressive and white collar it is, because it's just not where I come from. If you have a problem with somebody, you tell them and then you're over it and it's all fine. It's all good. I'm coming here and people are subtweeting and they're being weird and they're lying. And I'm just like, what the hell, man? What? And I'm just blundering in. I'm like, I mean, you saw me at StokerCon just eating my ribs,
Dude,
It's just like.
That's why I wanted to come talk to you.
I got it.
Yeah, go get your cord. We'll be here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay.
Drew will be right
How do I
back.
turn my-
Um,
How do I
Wow.
turn? Okay,
are you,
there
yep,
we
there we
go.
go. Okay.
You got it. You're good.
Oh yeah.
Drew will be right back. She's just grabbing her cord, but for her laptop charger. But yeah, I think that's that cultural conversation is so valuable. And Clay, I don't know if you got
Well-
interrupted, but yeah, you finish. You finish.
Yeah, I was going to say too, to play devil's advocate a little bit on that point about Alien Romulus, I think they do actually skirt that well with the way the script is written, as in it does make sense. That's the thing about it that kind of annoys me, is it actually everything does make sense, but I still don't like it because expositional dialogue is a pet peeve. But like, they are a ragtag team, and that gives them the advantage of ignorance. So it makes sense that they would talk about what's happening on the ship, and oh, that looks like acid. Maybe don't step in it, kind of stuff, you know. Oh, this is an old spaceship or whatever. In that scenario, you probably wouldn't be talking about your wife and kids. You know, you
Yeah.
probably would be locked in, just like if you were on a job site, just like if you were on a climb, just like if you were in a game or locked in on D&D. You know,
Mhm.
you're going to be locked in a moment like that. And I think this movie exclusively lives in those moments from the time they set sail. So it's got that advantage.
Yeah,
think-
they're not portraying the everyday. I mean, because it's not every day that you set foot on the wettest spacecraft that the universe has ever known.
I think that's a good point, Clay. And I think like the Nostromo in the original didn't have that because that crew had been together for I don't remember what the year count is at the beginning of Alien, but it's like something a long time. Those people knew each other. And
Yeah, and they were on a routine mission.
yeah,
Like
they were on
Alien was a crazy fluke for them. But these guys, they went up to this ship knowing it had probably crazy shit on it and willingly dove into that situation without having like the experience and the expertise. So it makes sense they would have the conversations they have. That's why it even annoys me even more.
That is a perfect transition to my second question. And now that Drew's back, I'll ask it to you first, Drew, and then anybody else. Atmosphere, because I love what you say, Clay, because to me that didn't frustrate me so much because it was bare bones enough for me to dive in to the atmosphere. And I knew Fede was going to give me an atmosphere because he's very, very good at that. And so I guess as writers, I just want to ask y'all, what is this how do you find the balance between like the atmosphere of your novel staying consistent and also not sacrificing plot or character development to try and create that atmosphere? Do you find that tricky? Is it something that just kind of comes natural if you write a good plot with good characters, or is it something you actually have to intentionally focus on creating the atmosphere of your world?
Atmosphere is a consistent struggle with me because I'm very dialogue heavy in my work. I also tend to be very character focused, and so it's easy for me to forget to put in the surroundings and what things look like because I'm not even really invested in my surroundings like in real life. I'm just like, oh, am I driving? Oh shit. All right. Let alone in a book where I'm like, no, I'm more interested in this tense conversation. I don't really care what the room looks like. It's actually something, atmosphere, when I'm editing, I really go back in and I make sure I get that in and I add the descriptions and I have that sense of time and place, because if I'm left to my own devices, I mean, I just don't really think about atmosphere necessarily.
Clay?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, for me anyway, when I'm editing it and tweaking it, I find that atmosphere is kind of where pacing meets tension for me. So it's like it mostly has to do. I usually write pretty bleak and dreary stuff anyway. So it's kind of like, not that I'm anywhere in the realm of creating an atmosphere like Fede is. I am not, very much on the record saying that. But I aspire to write something that's like heavy and dark like that, generally speaking. Kind of start in that place a lot of the time. because I like that better than starting happy, because that's what you see so often.
Yeah.
So I just kind of like to jump right in. So I would say I'm usually trying to lace it in as much as I can, and how the pacing and my tension points in the story balance out is really important to setting up the atmosphere the way I want it. So ramping up at the right times and lingering and breathing in those spaces when that's what you need to do.
I love how you start your atmosphere in Crevasse, because I also love telling people, they'll like open the book and be like, "Oh, Travis, there's a character named after you," and I'm like, "Not for long." He dies pretty fast. Really sets the tone. Jeremy, what do you got?
He actually
Well-
lives on through the
True.
whole series, you know, in a
But
way.
he's not really him
In
anymore.
a way. Yes. Well, I mean, first of all, I do think that the atmosphere is the real star of this film.
Yes.
Between, the sound and
100%.
the cinematography and everything. I think in writing, the atmosphere can largely be filled in by the reader's imagination, unless there's something specific and crucial to the story that you need to be saying. Usually it just kills the pacing if you go in too deep about how the sand feels on the beach or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, I think, and I'd love to hear y'all's opinion if you agree with me or think I'm an idiot, but I think so much of atmosphere plays into the kind of language you use. I'm thinking of 3 specific examples. One, Hitchhiker's Guide. Like he writes in this fast, quirky, witty pace that's constantly bouncing around, and you feel almost like the ADHD that he probably had while writing it.
Almost certainly, yeah.
Lord of the Rings, like all of Tolkien's language is big, verbose, like it's
Ornate.
Like you feel like you're in a cathedral while you read his words. And then right behind me, I have Isaac Asimov's Foundation series. And like that, I suggested it to my dad, and he made it through the first book and was like, I don't know what it was. I just didn't really like all the sciencey language. And I reread it and was like, oh yeah, it's like it's almost like a thesis. And like you're in this, you feel like you're in like a lecture hall in a futuristic world. And that's what Asimov's trying to build, because that's the language he's using. But what do y'all think?
I do think Foundation is as classic sci-fi as it gets. It is basically, this is my doctorate thesis disguised as a story. Not that that's not great stories in there. There certainly is, but they get a lot into theory and things like that.
Well, there's Dune too, in terms of atmospheric sci-fi.
Yeah.
And just the rambling, like, I don't want to say rambling, but sprawlingness of the atmosphere and the prose. It really, it matches.
Yeah. And how you almost get lost like in the desert, because he doesn't really like Herbert is very good at just introducing things, and you're like confused because he doesn't explain it. He doesn't really beat you with exposition. He's just like, you're gonna figure this out in a second, but as I introduce it, you're gonna be just as lost as this character is in the planet. But sorry.
Yeah, and I think what Jeremy was speaking to is true. You can't explain an atmosphere. It doesn't work. Like I think that I'm not really a fan of when people explain an atmosphere. I think you have to create an atmosphere. And just like Fede does in this film, that isn't one thing. You can't do it with just dialogue. You have to do it with music, and you have to do it with color scheme and visual effects and the types of shots you use, the lighting design in every scene, and the way the characters move through the world. Just like, are they walking fast? Are they walking slow? Are they looking around? What do they hear? What do they smell? What do they taste? What do they think they taste? Like all those little details create an atmosphere, I think. But if you try to describe an atmosphere, it almost always I don't know. It's not as effective, in my opinion.
It doesn't feel trustworthy as a reader when I hear because I'm like, if I have to read something that tells me the atmosphere is spooky, I actually assume the opposite. It almost turns me off. I'm like, oh, oh, the house was very spooky, was it? With its rose-colored carpet and its walls that bleed, and you're telling me it's spooky? Okay, man, that doesn't really sound spooky to me. It sounds like you need to hire a contractor stat and fix whatever's wrong with that drywall. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I get the stubborn pride where I'm like, oh, you want me to be spooked?
you want me to be spooked?
Now I won't.
Yes.
I refuse.
I refuse to be spooked now. But Jeremy,
It's gonna be. Yeah, I'm not just gonna be. It's spooky because you say it is. God of hell, I'll be spooked if I want to. But I agree with Travis's point that the language matters, and you really feel that with something. Even with Douglas Adams and his other works, Hitchhiker's Guide
Fantastic
reads
thematic atmosphere. Fantastic.
yeah, fantastic. And it also reads totally differently than something like Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, because the Hitchhiker's Guide relies a lot on made up words that you would not have thought of. It helps to sow the seeds of chaos and make the world feel so much more unfamiliar. Whereas Dirk Gently, it's got more of a fantasy sort of detective vibe. So it relies on you being able to know what is being talked about and stuff, even though it's all still very Douglas Adams, no matter how you read it. But I don't know. What's Colin's thought?
Colin, you're here, bro.
I'm here. It's been a while since I've seen this film when it came out in theaters.
Is that like
I think
a flex? You gave that a
Like
little like beat.
He's flexing on,
Oh, you
on,
kind of flex.
on us a little bit.
since it came out,
You're
in
just gonna
theaters-
pop
Yeah,
in
you know.
and flex
Behind the
Pop back
time.
out, or...
Just
Right, that's all the time I have for today.
Sorry, I'm actually getting a doctorate. So
When I
Uh,
went in and saw it in the theaters, and I got that sick as hell popcorn bucket,
hell
and I
yeah.
got all the snacks, and I didn't have to smuggle any of them in.
yeah, I
You always
didn't
gotta
just
smuggle
watch it
in.
this afternoon.
You're not
on
doing it right if
Hulu.
you don't smuggle.
Hey, I don't smuggle. I will.
Of course you
Colin,
wouldn't.
make your point, but I'm pro not smuggling. That's where movie theaters make
I
their money.
actually
I
am
think
too.
that's called
I am.
anti-smuggling.
I'm anti-smuggling.
You don't,
guys
you
There we
don't get
go.
to go. I'm
Businesses.
pro.
You
not.
throw other people's snacks in the
Drew,
trash.
are you
Maybe
with me?
maybe he's just saying he's a professional smuggler.
Wait.
Like he
Drew,
could
I
do
think-
it, but he doesn't want to.
I think Drew's with me. This is where movie theaters make their money, right? We got to keep them
Yeah,
alive.
and they're mom and pop businesses. I mean, yeah, I am actually anti-smuggling.
Thank
All
Don't
you.
be a dickhead. Buy their popcorn. It's better than yours.
Colin,
It
Oh,
is
God.
better.
sorry to
Part of the
interrupt you.
experiment.
So
Sorry.
You're
interrupt
pro
you.
smuggling, aren't you?
the
You piece of shit.
so Douglas Adams is a good reference that Jeremy made, because the thing is that, I mean, he basically nails everything you can nail in terms of plot and character and the pacing and everything else. But the thing is that, like, all of his stories are beginning, middle, end. Like, what happens in the beginning exactly happens at the end, and it had to happen that way. And it's very satisfying because, like, regardless of whether he had the idea or not, like, whatever he starts with, that's going to happen, right? We just talked about cricket and the history of cricket and what that means and these wickets, and it's like already built into the story. In like Ready Player One, the game is built into the storyline, the entire novel. And in Alien, the same thing, right? And I felt like overwhelmingly more important than what this film lacked, more even so than the sort of stilted dialogue, was just the fact that the ending had nothing to do with the beginning. Like, you could just toss out the beginning and cool, it's about aliens that they kill. That's what
It's
the
a
film's
poorly
about.
structured story.
So,
There's
like,
no
honestly, I was
tie-in
totally
thematically.
on board for the first half to 2/3 of the movie as a fanboy. But then we just get into pregnancy horror without any rhyme or reason, and it becomes very disconnected from the character who is pregnant, who we care about, right? And
the
like,
editor
overwhelmingly, it just, like, that's when I didn't care about the movie, is when it just became action, and it didn't really, I feel like the central conflict is between her and Andy, the android, and that relationship. And at the end, it doesn't really matter very much, right? I mean, very forgettable.
the editor said, go back and see if you can work that into the story earlier on a little bit.
Can we have
They
more
did
pregnancy horror?
They did one pregnancy conversation. Problem
I
solved.
mean,
It's
hey,
Payday.
isn't
Payday
the
loves
Alien
pregnancy.
franchise? Isn't the Alien franchise all just pregnancy horror?
Kind of. But
It
Drew,
is.
you've had your hand. You've had your hand. Up.
Well, okay. Inner editor, how I would have worked that in is have some kind of threat, have some like kind of threat to the baby or something. Have some kind of reason relating to the baby that they want to escape the mining planet. Like I don't know. Maybe they Yeah, no, it is total next level preg horror, but I'm with you that it's not there thematically. Like if they would have worked in a story and they would have woven that theme in where it's like, oh, for the baby, they're trying to go to this better planet so the baby's not forced into this life of indentured servitude on this mining colony rig.
Yeah.
And everything was for the baby, then it would have actually been tragic and sad when the baby is, turned into this alien abomination. Then there
The
actually would
ultimate
have
baby,
been,
if you will.
yeah, no, I mean, I
final
know
baby.
Alien Resurrection is kind of it's in a very interesting movie. Let's just say it. I feel like that actually took the concept of the offspring and the pregnancy horror and a human alien hybrid, and it actually explored that in a better way, in my opinion.
That would have Sorry, go
But I
ahead. Drew.
wanted to say earlier about atmosphere and character is that what makes things trickier is that the deeper you are into a character, the more atmosphere is going to be filtered through that character's lens. You don't see this as much in movies, but in books, it is a very big thing. Like a character is going to focus on what is important and relevant to them or in their goals.
Yeah, for sure.
Like an electrician is going to focus on the haunted house's crappy wiring, like atmosphere. And I think in a lot of ways you have to sacrifice character depth for atmosphere. It tends to be one or the other, I have found.
I'm thinking about Cujo when you say that because we mentioned it earlier, and I've told Clay this like 6 times. Probably buzzed every time. I usually bring this up when I'm buzzed. But one of my favorite character introductions ever is done by Stephen King, and that is the character in Cujo. The first time you ever meet the guy, he walks out onto his porch and like pees onto a flower pot. And like Stephen King describes in his head that he's like intentionally trying to kill the flower with his alcoholic pee because he's like so mad that it's bright and he wants it dead because he feels dead. And that just like hops you right into...
that's a character description.
Yeah, that creates atmosphere because then I'm like in the future, I'm like, this guy's grimy. That's the feeling I get is grimy.
Yeah.
And that's
Greasy.
going to carry on. Greasy
He's
dude.
a greasy
He's
boy.
a greasy boy. Or Cormac McCarthy
it's also
books in
a
one
really
chapter.
good defining character thing. That like one sentence tells you so much about the character, what he is, what he values. Like that's good character work.
Yep.
Cormac McCarthy books, it's always like one chapter and you're like, oh, sad. That is the setting.
Well, and you can do atmosphere in one place and then character depth in the other, because I agree, Drew. I feel like you kind of have to focus in a direction, but they definitely create each other down the line. So I think it's fun to kind of balance that and focus on something. A good example, since we're just throwing out our fanboy things, Cabin in the Woods. That's a good example of everything we're talking about. It's a very regular conversation. They're talking about their cabinets. And like you would think that would actually be a shallow character defining moment, but it actually works in the reverse way, because as you realize how fucked up it was for them to be having that conversation when they should be locked in on what they're doing, is like very defining. So it can kind of work in the opposite way too. That's an example I can think of that kind of ties to a lot of things we've talked about.
What makes it scarier is that that's how it is when real life horrors actually happen. It never happens on Halloween or it's always real life horror happens on a Tuesday at 3 p.m. when you're on your way to pick the kids up from school, when you're in the middle of making a cake for your grandma's birthday, when you're just on the couch watching TV, wondering if you're too sick to come into work tomorrow or not. Horror the mundanity is a very important part of creating realistic, compelling horror.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Colin, Jeremy, and then I have one more question for all of us.
Yeah, I was going to agree with what Drew was saying earlier. Sorry, there was a huge lightning strike outside. It's kind of crazy.
Nice.
But I was going to agree completely with what you said earlier because, I mean, really, we don't even need to know. And because we are from the perspective of these blue collar workers and trying to get out of this horrible
Mhm.
situation and lifestyle, like, we don't need to know Weyland-Yutani's plan. We've
Yeah.
probably, whether we are familiar with them from watching other movies or
Right.
not at all, it's almost better to keep it a secret and keep it a mystery and maybe identify it a little bit at the end. But I feel like shows like Andor do that, where it's like they don't need to explain the Empire. Like, the Empire is bad.
Yeah.
They have their secret horrible plans. We know that. Cool. You don't need to give away the whole master plan halfway through and like try and
Mhm.
develop the plot from there. It's almost better if we see the aliens through these characters' eyes who have never seen them before.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
that in itself is a kind of a new way to see what we're familiar with.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy?
Well, I think it's sort of springing off Colin's point unintentionally, like the lack of characterization in this, because the characters are doing the typical sci-fi thing of explaining the world to people. It makes me get distracted by my own intrusive thoughts, like, why does Weyland-Yutani even want a xenomorph when they always just kill everyone? Is it just because they're hard to put down? I don't know. I don't get it.
Mhm.
Why'd that pregnant lady inject herself with alien goo? Why'd the alien goo make her give birth to Slender Man? It's
He finally
Yeah.
showed up after all this time.
he finally
Slender
showed
Man.
up. Great, cool. Like, and
Yeah.
also, like, it's like, did the ultimate rat baby just not make it? Just explode?
I think
Just
so.
explode?
I think
Did the
ultimate
android
hunter.
just not watch that part of the surveillance footage? And he's like, yeah, you'll probably be fine if you shoot yourself with this.
It watched it. It did not show it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he watched it. Maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know. Did he just skip the end? I don't know. I don't know what his programming directive was like, but like,
Do what is
I
best for Weyland-Yutani. Do what is
Yeah.
best for Weyland-Yutani, but because we don't know what the fuck Weyland-Yutani wants, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. I just,
What
you
are
know
you-
what? That was my biggest hot take, because that was supposed to be such a big thing, and it's like, oh, but
Yeah.
you're just protecting these people that realistically Weyland-Yutani would have had that android like try to kill all these people, so they don't
right,
have
just
witnesses.
kill them all.
And
You
then they
don't
would
want
have
them
to
to
fight the
know.
android, and that would have been actual tension and interest and conflict. But no, it's like, well, I'm just sadder and more boring now, but I'm also more badass, so let me help you fight these aliens off. It's like, Andy,
what's going on?
now I
I
care
do-
even less.
It's not as I forgot that I had one more comment for discussion and then a question, but we talked a lot about how, like, once you have 90 aliens, the alien stops being scary. I don't think that's this movie's fault. I think that's Aliens' fault, which is good.
It
Yes.
is this movie's
Yeah.
fault for doing it anyway.
Wait.
Just because it's been
I
done
get
before.
that. I'm just saying, like, you do have to think, because of the sequel to Aliens having like 120 aliens, like that. I hate that happened. I love Aliens, but I do hate what it's done to the franchise of, like, now we have to make everything bigger, and it's like
Dragon
You-
Ball Z.
you can't make anything bigger than the 120 aliens and the Space Marines just getting like annihilated by all of them. That was the pinnacle of your alien threat, and so now, like Drew said, they have to try and think of these new creative ways, but I think they missed the home run with this one. Jeremy?
See, I think that overall people have, failed to learn the lesson that we can all learn from Aliens, which is that there is difficulty with even the concept of a horror franchise, which we touched on earlier, because, the horror part, it blew its load in the first movie. Just
Yeah.
That's all the
It
horror.
did. It peaked.
Like, yeah, we've seen the whole Alien. Aliens is less scary, but it's still a great movie because it just decides, fuck it, we're action sci-fi now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
and
think
in the second
then,
and
of
third
course-
act. The first
Yeah.
act is still kind of creepy because the Space Marines are going in with the cameras and it's like, oh, there's all these dead bodies. But as soon
I
as the
know.
aliens show up, it's like, no, this is just an action movie.
Well, this one wants to be it wants to be tonally and atmospherically. It wants to be the first movie, but it's structured like the second movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's what it is.
It starts
You
all
can't-
creepy and misty and mysterious and psychological, and then it goes hard into like,
Yeah, exactly.
well, guess
You
how
know,
many xenomorphs there are, bitch? A fucking 1,000. Good luck.
you can't undo people knowing
And the
exactly what
spaceship is
xenomorphs
crashing
are,
too.
And,
and
the
you
space-
Well-
can't.
And that's
More.
again so much wasted potential in this movie because, like, realistically speaking, I think the reason why 90 aliens doesn't scare us is because apex predators like that on Earth, there are not 90 bears. The bears start killing each other. That many apex predators don't exist in an enclosed space. They start just
They
They start
totally
just
would. Sharks
biting
don't
each
even
other.
get born yet, and they start eating each other. They eat each
Mhm.
other in the womb.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like why didn't we see any of that? Why didn't we see some scene where they're eating each other and now only the strongest one remains and then they have to kill? And then it's also like wasted potential. Like for all that the alien movies show us about the reproductive process, it's like we don't really see a lot about what these things just do when they're not doing that. You know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
had opportunity, like how are they doing the reproduction? Is it something like messed up, like you know how ticks reproduce or bed
Mm.
bugs?
Mm.
I'm
Ugh.
not trying to get too gory, but like there's so many weird ways they could have taken this. Like I don't know, just had the aliens start doing, I don't know, like ripping each other apart. I don't know, maybe they have another form, maybe just something new.
Yeah,
Do you
maybe they're
think-
ripping each other apart. Maybe they're forming softball leagues. I want to see what they do when they're not just around people.
have
Yeah, I want to
forums.
see xenomorph softball leagues, dude. That's what I want to see.
They're just making
Be sick.
sourdough bread.
I'm gonna lump two questions together here because they both have to do with body horror. A, do you think that possibly they might not have gone into the craziness that they could have because they knew this would be a blockbuster hit? And so it's like they're trying to appeal to the widest audience they can, trying not to gross out too much. And B, this is going to be a goofy question. Please don't take any offense to it, but I've never understood body horror, and I'd like to. So I'm asking you, Drew, as someone who writes it, like the only way I know how to phrase this question is body horror. What's that all about?
Body horror is fundamentally about loss of control and loss of social standing. When you're in a position, a lot of us are in positions we are, so whether we want to admit it or not, society is very shallow. People are very shallow. And instead of regarding our fellow human beings as, you know, beings inherent of worth, no matter who they are, what they look like, or what their capacity for work is, unfortunately, society as a whole, it does group us into classes. It does tend to divide people based on their worth, what they can produce for society, or other external things. And the thing about body horror is that you never see body horror like turning you pretty. You know what I mean? You
Mhm.
never see a body horror film where all of a sudden you're more attractive and it's super cool. No, body horror is by and large about losing control of the one thing we're always told we have control over, which is our body, our mind. It's like, oh, they can put you in a cell, they can jail you. You can be fighting off a slasher, but you still can run or hide or fight. Your body is supposed to be the one thing that you have some measure of control over.
Mhm.
You know, unless you're sick, unless you have like a thyroid condition, unless you have something going on. And even then, like so much of modern medicine is based around how do I control my body? How do I do this? How do I do that? Think about Ozempic, how popular that's become. I don't have any issues with that morally. I'm not. People are going to do what people are going to do, but it's popular for a reason. Everyone feels like they're losing control. And when people feel like they're losing control, they double down on, but I can go to the gym and get swole, but I can make myself lose weight. I can get plastic surgery. I can make my body the one thing I have power and control over. And with body horror, but that's an illusion, right? Because we get old, we get sick.
Totally.
You can get a tumor on your thyroid, have that removed, and balloon up to like twice your size in a year. That happens to people like every day. You can get Cushing's. You can get Hashimoto's, lose 40 pounds no matter how much you eat.
Mm-hmm.
You can get cancer, lose your hair, lose your immunity. You can have chronic illnesses. Like a lot of people I know my age have chronic illnesses.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So body horror, what's horrifying about that is that it really, really rips that Band-Aid, that illusion of I have control over my body off. It really forces you to confront the idea that even your own body will someday be something that could be a prison for you, that could be monstrous, that could be viewed by society as worthless. Because all of us in this room, if we're very lucky, are going to get old someday. All of us in this room at some point will become disabled. It's only a matter of when it happens. Will you get a chronic illness, or will it not happen until you're 80 years old? But at some point, we all lose control of our bodies. We start off shitting in diapers. We end our lives shitting in diapers. And to me, it's not about the fact that your body starts doing crazy stuff in body horror. Again, it is fundamentally about exposing the lack of control and power that we have when it comes to our bodies and how society views us. That's my take on it.
I love that take. So you think that they're fundamentally tied psychologically, but Clayton and Jeremy, Clay first and then Jeremy, and then I have a follow-up question as someone who writes body horror.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fucking awesome perspective and summary of the subgenre. That's one of the best I've ever heard. I will genuinely say that.
Thank you.
That was awesome. I was just actually going to ask if you could tell us some good examples of if maybe people don't like the grotesque as much, but they like all those other awesome elements of body horror you just described. If you have any good examples of people they could read or watch.
Ooh. So there's this one movie, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's like this older, more corny movie. It's like this dude discovers this teleportation device and it's not The Fly. But he starts like teleporting these other
That
dimensions.
was my first guess, yeah.
And he starts like flesh bending and turning into this monster, and he starts I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but it's got that scene where the guy's head starts growing. It's got like 80s practical effects. And I mean, it's grotesque, obviously, but it's not gory per se. It's more about this idea that something can warp you and you like it, which is a concept I really go into in The Divine Flesh. And I'm trying to think of a few others, but most of the body horror that I can think of off the top of my head is very grotesque, I guess. So Lucy Snyder came out with a book called Sister Maiden Monster in 2022. I personally didn't really care for the characters all that much, but it has some very top-notch, weird, trippy body horror. We've got Julia Armfield's Our Wives Under the Sea, which is a very sad literary book. This woman comes back from a deep ocean expedition, and she basically starts dissolving into goo. It's very sad. It's very sad and tragic. Those are the only ones I can think of body horror where it's less gory off the top of my head.
Jeremy,
have you by any chance read? I just wanted to ask real quick. Have you read To Cheer as They Leave You Behind by James Sutter by chance?
Ooh, I haven't.
It's awesome. I would wonder if you would consider it body horror. It's kind of the story. It's not kind of. It's the story of a mother who has a telepathic link to her daughter, and she can control her daughter's actions. So when she's a baby, it makes sense. She stops her from touching the stove. She stops her from going outside into traffic. But as she becomes a teenager and then an adult, it becomes actually pretty fucked up. It's an awesomely gruesome story. And
Yeah.
I wonder if you would consider that kind of thing body horror. That's very rooted in the mind, but it kind of does get into she's trying to prevent her daughter from having experiences that she did. And so much of that ties into the loss of control of your body, like getting pregnant at college, and things like that.
Definitely would classify that as body horror, but also possession horror, which is a link to body horror. Think about how
Right.
grotesque Regan becomes in The Exorcist the longer the demon's inside her body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great point. Great point. Sorry,
Yeah.
didn't mean to cut it on the raise hands. Goodbye.
You're good, Jeremy and Colin, and then I gotta ask my last question here. That was supposed to be my last question,
yeah.
but that was so good.
Yeah, don't worry, there'll be more questions. But to Travis's original question, part of the original question is, you say this movie is trying to play it safe as a blockbuster, but
Maybe.
all the same, the final fight is with a newborn baby. So there's that to think about.
It looks like
true.
Slender Man. It doesn't count.
It does look like
Yeah.
Slender Man with a tail. Yeah.
I think.
Whoa,
if
you
it
just
didn't
spent
look
the
more
whole
like a
movie.
baby, then I would count that.
Well,
I'm
here's
just
what.
saying,
you
you
know.
just spent the whole movie thinking an android was the most likable person. How is this not a baby, bro? It just came out.
Here's what
It's
I'm
doing
saying.
what it was born to do.
That's crazy.
The reason I thought of that is because in the Fede Alvarez filmography, this is one of his tamest movies. Like there's way more gross out scene ending in Don't Breathe, way more gross out scene endings or scenes in general in the Evil Dead remake. And it seemed like this one he kind of knew was going to hit a lot of people, and maybe he walked it back a little just because he knew like a wider audience was going to watch it. He doesn't want people fleeing the movie theater going like, and I might be wrong.
All I'm saying is if they would have put a placenta or an umbilical cord on that thing as it's coming out, then that would have sold the they're fighting a baby angle. Like
That would have
really,
been
that's
so-
what we're gonna go into.
That'd have been pretty good. And well, not
But, like,
good,
the
I don't
placenta's
think is the word
weird,
for
and
that
it's like
actually.
a parasitic thing that wants to like
Go back.
which is
It's got
actually how it is in
mouth.
the uterus though. When the placenta's growing, like scientifically, it has a whole, it's literally a separate organ. It filters the blood. It's a whole like thing. They could have done so much with that.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
Yeah.
Colin.
And,
could've even
my
got-
second point.
Oh, Jeremy's got 2 points.
Oh yes, my second point, which is I will go on to say it's not as important as anything that we've said, but it is to Drew's point of I would be amazed if body horror where you get more attractive wasn't some kind of pornography.
Yeah.
It has to be,
that is
right?
a subgenre.
Yeah, probably.
They have a
There we go.
Yeah. Colin.
Yeah, the body horrors that I always think of are Cronenberg, The Fly,
Yep.
and Existenz, which maybe we should do on the podcast sometime.
Maybe.
With a Z. And
Rick and Morty.
also, yeah, Rick and Morty made fun of that. The
Ooh,
Cronenberg
so
creatures,
much
they just
body
called
horror.
Cronenbergs. And then David Lynch too. Anything David Lynch.
Anything
Like
David Lynch.
Dune and The Elephant Man and Mulholland Drive, like all of those. But I think also two of my favorites are from video games, which one is Dead Space, which I think this draws heavily from, and a lot of modern sci-fi draws from Dead Space, which is all about weird alien stuff contorting the human body in crazy ways, and that's like what you go through in the entire game. And then one of my favorites was in BioShock, which is another great video game that involves horror. And
yes.
One of my favorite characters of all time is the plastic surgeon in BioShock, who his medical ability with this new thing they've created allows him to do plastic surgery basically without fear of infection. And then he just loses it, because if you can alter the human body basically at will, like why would you just you made everyone so beautiful, now you're bored of making people beautiful, so time to do other weird crazy stuff and
Exactly,
make them
make
look
people
terrifying.
rad.
So my question I need to ask now, Drew, as a person who writes body horror, so when I say I didn't understand it, you've helped that you've opened that a lot, how it's tied very much to the psychological element. But I feel like I go to horror. I don't read it frequently. I go to it for this show or to be scared. And I don't think I've read a body horror book yet that has, I guess, scared me. And I wonder, do you think that's because I'm just not picking up really good ones? Or is it something with, is there an element to audience of horror where certain things just aren't going to click in our psyche and we aren't going to make those connections?
Absolutely. There's a popular quote, I can't remember who said it, but it is, if you want to know all about a culture, look at the scary stories it tells.
Mm-hmm.
Horror is very much contextual based on the audience. A lot of the Wendigo legends, and they're not really called that, they have different names in folklore, but a lot of them for Native Americans do center around that fear of being a threat to the community. Fear of being greedy, fear of being cannibalistic, which tells you an awful lot that culture is very community-based. It's very collectivistic. It's very everyone contributes. And so the worst monster that they can think of is somebody who is so crazy and detestable that they would turn to dark powers for magic, or become a hungry ghoul living in the woods and have their appetite turn them into a monster. With Japan, so much of the Godzilla lore is about the fallout from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The radiation, the fear of what have we wrought? Is this going to come back? There's something very powerful in how Godzilla literally is known for destroying cities, right? In one fell swoop. Which, again, tells you a lot about that culture. And I definitely think different types of horror resonate too, as I'm saying, different cultures very differently. Like someone from a different culture might look at the legend of the Wendigo and just be scared that it's a thing that's in the woods, but they're like, oh, it's just a monster, right? Because they don't have that cultural fear. They don't have that. Whereas someone from that culture looks at it and they're scared. They're terrified. That's a thing they do not want to become at any cost. And so, I mean, honestly, if you're not scared by body horror, maybe you're just not that, maybe you're just like mentally at a level to where you accept the loss of control, you know, when it comes to like the body. You just kind of like mentally like.
It kind of makes sense.
Everyone has their thing that they're scared of. Yeah. Everyone does. If body horror is not doing it for you, there is some subgenre of horror that will scare the shit out of you. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think you've really made it kind of make sense. Like I've been wrestling since I was 5 and I never was amazing at it. So I've had a lot of moments of loss of control. Like where.
Oh, that does make sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Injuries and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Jeremy.
Yeah, I think it's you know, to build off the points being made, there really is no universal genre or topic. I think, you know, it's a very personal thing, especially when it comes to horror. I think body horror resonates with me because I have ADHD, and so executive dysfunction, wherein my brain won't let me do the things that I want to do, is just a part of my life. And that makes, you know, these worst case scenarios that you can read or watch, you know, they hit a little different than for someone who isn't necessarily going through that. Yeah,
I think that
there's also, I mean, we talked about Hyperion, right? And that first story in Hyperion, to me, it was like, you know, oh my God, that sounds like if I thought about something even worse than the crucifixion, like that would be it. Being crucified every day, and then being revivified by something on this planet, like that sounds even worse, you know? And so that also is kind of a body horror thing, is like, you know, torture and how often torture shows up in like James Bond movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And
or anything starring Mel Gibson.
Yeah. Or war movies. There's a lot of like horrific scenes
constantly
in war movies. And we talked about trying to get things accurate. I think those are the most scrutinized films for like film genre for like accuracy is the amount of YouTube videos I've watched of like war veteran says Saving Private Ryan gets this gun wrong. It's like, yeah, they scrutinize the hell out of war movies. But any final thoughts? I don't know. I have no more questions, but we talked about a lot of stuff. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Any kind of final thoughts that we have on Alien Romulus before we rate this thing?
If I had to say, there are only two things that I didn't really get to mention. One, which wasn't story relevant at all, I feel like I would be pretty okay with a planet that had no sunlight.
Yeah.
Like all the times that I think about the sun is like, oh God, why is this? You just stop that, okay?
I wouldn't. But it'd make teaching easier. I
Right,
wouldn't have any kids asking me constantly. It became spring here finally, and we have 2 nice days. And the first question, first period, can we have class outside? And I'm like,
Yeah,
no.
can we have class outside,
Can we
Travis?
have class outside every period? So teaching would be easier, but I think I would go absolutely insane. But you had one more point.
Yes, the only other thing I didn't get to is, there is a little bit of love in my heart for the third, I'll say, type of Alien sequel, which is the Alien versus Predator franchise, which is the Alien franchise's fun idiot cousin.
Yeah.
That's really all that I've got.
All right. Anyone else have anything to add before we rate with our completely arbitrary rating system, which is how many drinks would it take to enjoy this film to the fullest?
If you like sci-fi and horror, and especially the crossing of those two genres, totally still worth the watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not winning picture of the year, but it was still a perfectly great Alien movie. So if you like the Alien movies, generally speaking, this is a good one. This is one of the better ones, I still do think.
It's probably my 3rd or 4th favorite of the franchise.
It's one of the better in-between quills I've ever seen.
In-between quills, yep.
It is for sure.
All right, let's rate this thing. Colin, let's start with you because you're in my bottom left. How many drinks does it take for you to fully enjoy Alien Romulus?
We're gonna pull Jeremy from last week on this one, and it is just gonna be like, I think you should like mix a bunch of alcohols together. Like you want to black out before you get 3/4 of the way through the film, so you just don't see the ending. Because like there are some films that I watched when I was too young, and they're scarier to me still because I didn't finish them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you should do that with this film. Like, don't see the end. Just get trashed and pass out.
Man, all right.
I'm starting
And
to
so
wonder
you're gonna
what I
do
said
you're gonna
last
do
week.
whatever that requires. Depending on your weight, you're gonna have to look up some, blood alcohol concentrations, and then go for like, a good do the Edward 40 hands. Just duct tape 40 ounces to your hands. And you have to finish them before the end of the film.
All right, Edward 40 hands for Colin. Jeremy.
Damn.
Oh, for me. Oh, right. Okay, so what you'll want, right? Hey, you'll want to. This is a variable game of shots. All right, you'll want to take a shot every time somebody gives some exposition. However, you realize that the more you do that, the less you'll recognize it as exposition. So you'll achieve a buzz pretty early on, and you'll get pretty drunk, but you'll maintain that throughout the film.
That's
so
brilliant.
You'll either not be bothered by the ultimate baby, or you'll be very upset at the end. And I can't guarantee which is which.
Mm-hmm.
You're rolling the dice. I do like that. I was going to say something similar, which was take a drink like every time they tell you what they're doing right now. But I wasn't going to say shots. it's going to be more of a power hour situation
Yeah.
because it's literally every time anybody talks, they will tell you what they're doing and why they're thinking and what they're feeling. So yeah, power hour basically. That's what I say.
I'm
Power
doing-
it.
I'm doing the power hour approach too, but only as an alien nerd, because I'm gonna just say like take a large swig every time there's an Easter egg, because
God.
Fede
So-
pays some tribute. He pays some tribute. There's a lot of Easter eggs in here, and then when you get to the baby hybrid thing, finish something strong, because but then. I think I have to disagree with Colin. You have to finish this movie, if only to see the ship crash scene into the like asteroid belt. Because
Yeah,
that was
shout out to that scene.
That's
That
kinda
was
cool.
like
That's
interstellar
pretty cool.
level.
that was
fucking sweet.
chef's kiss. Good.
Like,
The
ooh,
soundtrack with it and
in
everything.
theaters, I was like, oh, that was awesome. But anyway, so yeah, you finish another drink for that one. So you're looking at probably a 6er, with the last two being chugs, one for the weird xenomorph baby, and one for the absolute beauty that is the shipwreck scene.
Mhm.
Drew,
That's so cool.
we're gonna end with your rating, and then after you rate it, if you could tell people who you are, where to find you, what
All right.
your books are.
So the thing you need more importantly than alcohol is a really funny asshole friend to watch this with. So you get your funny asshole friend,
Yeah.
you get a nice big bottle
Yes.
of Fireball, and then you start off with 3 shots. You start off with 3 shots, so you're just like buzzed enough to think that, like, to kind of get into the visuals. And then when the characters start talking and being cardboard cutouts, you and your snarky asshole friend can start substituting better dialogue and cracking jokes. Now, that'll carry you, again, up until like the midway point when shit starts to get real. Then you'll want to take 2 more shots of Fireball.
Good. You want to
Just
plan.
you want to plan. And then, like Colin was saying, by the time Ultimate Baby comes out, you and your snarky asshole friend will have like 6 nicknames you come up with for it. 6 cooler, better nicknames. You can
Get in the
drunkenly
comments
shout
if
at
you
the
want a
TV
laugh
set.
track of Alien
A
Romulus
wrist track
for us to do.
Please do. I'll get hammered and watch it again. I swear.
I
And
love that
then-
system.
Yeah, no, it's solid. Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing though about this movie that was really the most disappointing. It's not so bad that it's good, and
Mhm.
that like the other like the Resurrections, that movie Aliens, that was so bad it was hilarious.
Mm.
Like that was just like, oh my god, what am I watching?
The
What am I
dog.
doing? What am I?
Dog.
What am I doing? I love this. Where is this going? This is fucking crazy. Oh
Mhm.
my. I feel like I'm watching a clown in a bouncy house. I don't even know what's what, why these people are here, but what's going on. But I'll see where this is going.
I feel
Anyway,
like Fireball is a good pairing as well. Like I'm gonna
Fireball.
regret this
yes.
movie and this alcohol choice.
Yeah, don't waste the good booze on this. What are you doing?
No. If you really want authenticity, you can get one of those buckets of like 20 little fireballs, and you can just pop those back instead of dirtying your shot glasses.
Mm,
Mm.
I think that's solid. All right, Drew.
I'm
can you-
on
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm on Instagram mostly, at Drew Huff. I have another book coming out fairly soon. I have a short story collection, In the World of the Divine Flesh, which is a crazy, trippy body horror epic. I've got the craziest adventures that happened before the events of the Divine Flesh. And I have another very exciting publishing announcement coming up next week.
right.
Suffice to say, 2026, there will be at least 2 books.
Oh, all
Hell
right.
yeah, dude.
All right. Well, Drew, we really appreciate you coming on the show. You've been an awesome guest.
Oh, thank you. This
thank
was
you
fun.
thank you for your awesome commentary on writing, the craft of body horror writing, of horror writing, and the critiques of Alien Romulus. Some of us suggest watching it. Some of us do not. I'm a big Fede fan. I follow everything he does, but we sit somewhere around like pretty buzzed for this movie. You want to get especially buzzed before you see Ultra Baby.
Yeah, just Watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, be prepared for the ultimate baby. Yeah.
Yeah, be prepared for Ultimate Baby. Thank you, everybody. That'll be a show. We've been Fermented Fiction, the same people you watch, hopefully every week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Are we off YouTube? There we go. Okay.
Now we are.
Hey.
Hell yeah.